good thing. And then we'll take a look at some of the techniques and just kind of test drive a couple of them to see if, to see whether they're helpful or not. First of all, so I don't have to do all the work. What do we see as some of the challenges in doing Oregon training? Let's just start over here with this bunch of people and go around. I'm not, I know what I think of the challenges, but I'd like to get your input on what it is that gives us the most agita with, you look like you're just dying to say something.
No.
No? Okay. Go back to sleep then.
It's teaching them the things that TaxAide doesn't do.
Yeah. That's just a huge thing.
Well, how the federal return links to this Oregon return.
How it links to the Oregon return and how it doesn't link to the Oregon return. All right, anything else?
Also, any changes for the returning volunteers, any changes that are different from what they knew prior. Last year, our biggest issue with the returning is that state of Oregon, or the feds didn't make the decision on the tuition and fees deduction in time.
Yep.
And so, we've already had sites open and doing tax returns by the time TaxAide caught up. And so it's, you're teaching a this may happen kind of thing, and so you're having to consider the ifs. Returners are so used to doing it that you have to tell them this isn't a guarantee.
Yeah, and we get better notice and warning about that stuff from the feds, and sometimes it takes a little while for it to ripple through the Oregon DOR.
Especially like the, standard deduction, itemized deductions. How is it going to change this year based on what the feds did?
Right. Any other comments on the difficulties? We have this weird little wrinkle out there this year. Anybody heard of the Oregon transit tax? Yeah. Oh, good. I haven't, so I don't get a W-2 since I'm retired, but theoretically, people are going to see a new transit tax withheld on their W-2s, and theoretically it's going to be in box 14. What do we do with it? What does it mean? The decoupling from the federal, of course, the federal law has changed a great deal, and every time they do that, Oregon's got to pick and choose. What are they going to do with it? And that can be confusing for the.
Back. You're confusing the camera.
Well, better I confuse the camera than these people.
Is that what you're doing in here?
So, yes, I'm. You need the tape mark on the floor.
Bill of Fortune next month.
I guess, yeah. I just.
The stand is your outer limit.
That's the left.
Is this what it is here?
That's why it's there.
I didn't realize that. I was actually tempted to move it, but then I would have really gotten in trouble.
Don't move it.
All right, so we've got the decoupling from the federal. What is federal doing that that Oregon is not doing? There's the QBI thing, qualified business income deduction, and all that kind of good stuff, and how Oregon's going to handle that. The software limitations are still there, the special Oregon medical, the federal pension. We are not California with a state of 40 million people. They ain't going to fix us. And I think this one's fixed, but we haven't seen it yet. The Oregon refund automatically being subtracted back out in Oregon. And then the Oregon returns for certification. Those challenges just because of the timing of when Oregon is supposed to come out. When we did, people heard the TaxAide update webinars? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Paul Dickey was saying he has no idea when Oregon is going to come out. So, that's something that we won't know probably until we see it, and then we're going to have to do crash testing of it. So those are really, I think, the main challenges I see. There's always other things that go on as we move through it.
The daily changes to the software, that's also another challenge, because the software, especially in the very beginning, tends to change day by day, and so things that may have worked yesterday may not work today. And that sometimes is an issue.
But they promise it's not going to change during
During the day.
You know, they started out probably thinking
Seriously.
they weren't gonna make major changes during tax season, and
Yeah.
now, we saw what happened with that. Sorry,
Well,
keep going.
and they have gotten a little bit better with some of the things, even some of the ways, at least from the interface standpoint, that they treat Oregon. You know, you can look at the Oregon return now without having to generate the whole PDF, which is a valuable thing. You can print one out. Let's see.
Have you seen that in practice?
In 2017.
In 2017,
Okay.
yeah, some of these things they retrofit back into 2017.
Great.
And so, you know, that's been very helpful. All right. So some of the things that we think would be good resources to train on Oregon. I think Ruth alluded to it, or Lois, we developed a standard Oregon module. I'm just going to bring it up. I'm not going to go all the way through it because it is a standard Oregon module. But we will share it. I got a couple of tweaks to make to it, and then we'll put it up on the, this is the one with the mountain on it. So it's basically goes through all of the basics.
Make it a PowerPoint.
I will.
Flip through a couple.
I'm going to flip through a couple of stuff. It's got the basic stuff on it, the new filing figures for Oregon, and the helpful federal versus Oregon flowchart, which is up on the Eugene TA site. This is a wonderful site, especially as some the federal tax law filing thresholds diverge more from Oregon.
And if you used last year's flow chart from federal to state, it's been updated. Folks in Portland took a whack at it, so version 2 has more clarity to it.
Cool.
So, yeah. So it's
Yeah, this is just illustrative. It's if you want to look at it on the Eugene site, because in the toolbox, and that's part of it. Got the resident return, what a part year, full year resident is. Some of the issues with the federal 1040 versus the Oregon 40 flow. I don't think the Oregon, there's a federal to Oregon flow chart that has been on.
That's what I was just talking about.
Yeah,
That's been
the flow chart itself, because last time I looked, it hadn't been updated. I probably will add that to us as a reference, because it's a really helpful flow chart to your point of what things are going over from the.
Charlie, I'm going to double check on that because it may not.
Yeah,
be-
the last one I saw hadn't been updated
Yeah, I thought I
yet.
checked yesterday, it wasn't quite
Okay,
that.
it may not be there.
Then we go through the structural stuff. We've got the subtractions, yet more subtractions, the deductions. One of the things that we do cover, there's not a whole lot of law change in Oregon this year, mostly grappling with what the feds have done. We include the new Oregon Schedule A, because this is something that Oregon previously just took the itemized deductions from Schedule A of the feds, subtracted out the Oregon tax liability, and boom, there you were. But because far fewer people will be itemizing for federal, the Oregon people have gone this way. The Oregon DOR has been very wonderful about sharing their draft forms with us, so we've been able to do some work on it. Because this is really the tax law lecture that we would the bare minimum tax law lecture that we do have to do in PowerPoint, just to make sure that people are aware of what's going on. Then we spend the time on the more troublesome thing, the retirees, subtractions. Got some how these things work. I like animation too. The special Oregon medical subtraction, of course, and
65. Yeah, 65.
65 now.
And
Yeah.
then it'd be 65 for 2 years, and then it would be 66.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So the limits on SOMs, and then we do. This is one we have to go out to again. So we make reference to the calculator on the Eugene's TA site, the allocation parts of it, and then it calculates the subtraction, and also it also tells you where to put it in the tax ledger. cover that, thanks to John, I had forgotten covering the working family high school dependent care credit. That's, there's a couple of glitches there again with TaxSlayer. And it does the calculation automatically, but you get to tell it you're qualified. The kind of goes through, oh, there it is, some of the Oregon tax law. So that's out there, it's available to use. One of the things that we did do, because we're going to use the case method, is that we created a couple of additional slides that we would use as part of the case method. So after we get through whatever slides we're going to use for the federal, we'll be moving right into the Oregon return. So where there are issues with Oregon, we have done some slides to help us handle that in Oregon. So these wouldn't appear after the lecture. They would be later on. I just put them in the standard module because we haven't broken them out yet. And if you don't use the case method, you can use these, some other way. But I just wanted to put them out there because they seemed useful. Similarly with the Davenport, and we start with the federal, and then go through issue identification, and then how to handle it, and then the SOMS calculator we would go out to. So that's kind of how we would be proposed to handle it. What we're going to do, just because we're arm wrestling with how do we integrate Oregon into a case method curriculum, is we will be doing that up front. So we'll start with a something on the new Form 1040, the new sort of really basic tax law changes in federal, and then do the Oregon, and then move into the case-based, and with each of the returns, move through an Oregon return. I think that's what I've got on the standard module. So we will share this on the instructor share site, and feel free to modify it. Now there again, we didn't cover Indian stuff because we don't see it. If you need a slide on that, stick one in there and make it your own, as you will. We just have no particular pride of ownership, but I did want to make sure that you were aware it was out there.
Or will be when we get home.
Or will be when we get home, that's right. Okay. Let me sure I'm in the right place. Give Portland a flex here. There's that the DOR drafts. We've shared that some places. They're on the instructor share site. Just useful for illustrating what the heck is going on, especially in Oregon with Schedule A. Schedule A. Sorry. And then, as Celeste, we've all alluded to, Portland has a wealth of training modules on Cache Oregon that may or may not be useful. They're again, modify them as you need them. Oregon Publication 17. This year it's not going to be paper, alas. But I think it's mostly cost, although one of the things they're concerned about is late changes and having to keep revising it. But they have promised us they're going to make it a smart PDF, so it will have internal links. You won't have to be using Control-F. There'll be a linkable table of contents, a linkable index, relevant navigation tools within the PDF to make that less painful.
And there'll be a link for that on Eugene TA.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
As soon as it's out.
As soon as it's out.
Yeah, and Eugene TA will link to it. We'll always be going back to DOR because they're going to be doing dynamic updating as we go through. Eugene TA has all of this wonderful stuff. We'll talk about the ASC worksheet in a minute. DOR also has a wonderful service that I availed myself of last year called Revenues, where you can go on the DOR site and sign up to get notices of what's going on, especially kind of helpful for, oops, did I just shut off my computer?
You just shut off your computer?
I think so.
How did you do that?
I hit the wrong button.
No, you did. Yeah, I'll take it home.
These are days when I go, I love you. Oh, you did just turn off your computer. Good job. Excellent. Yeah, turn it on again.
I know what button to push.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, good job.
I just don't know when to push it. It'll come back.
Well, I don't see the. Yeah, there we go.
It's back.
You're booting.
It's your opportunity to dance.
That's right.
Sing a dance.
Little, hand puppets. So I'm on the right side of the field. Like,
I dropped my trombone off at the repairman in Portland, so I don't have it with me. Otherwise, you're all lucky. But it will get there. Anyway, DOR has a wonderful site you can sign up for in the tax professionals area of DOR, and they will send you a newsletter with late-breaking information.
There is updates. It's a challenge to trying to find where to sign up for it, which is why I think it's going to show. Turned off his computer.
Well, instead of hitting the escape key, I hit the really escape key.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it takes a little while to get back into.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think today's was on the credit auction.
Yes. I know I saw it.
Tax professional.
Yes. There it is. See, it is hard to find. But there it is. Stay up to date with subscribe to revenues now. And this is something I found helpful for tax law changes and other information from the DOR.
Do we know yet how what we input on the federal side is going to manifest itself on the state side for their new Schedule A, or do we?
No, because we haven't seen the software yet. I mean, I suspect it will all flow through. I'm not 100% sure why Oregon is coming up with its own Schedule A.
It has to do with the state and local taxes and the limitations. On
Yeah,
the federal
they
side.
have to figure out what order to apply the limits in. Because when you have, there's a $10,000 limit on deducting taxes.
Is it on the state side too?
Yes, there is a limit. But of course, on the state side, you're not deducting your income tax anyway.
Right.
So if you have a situation where you were above that limit, you may be able to get close to the 10,000 on the Oregon itself. Just if your property taxes are high. The transit tax, that's a state income tax. That's not going to be deductible in Oregon, but it will be deductible probably in federal. It's not a big amount. It's 1/10 to 1%, I think.
And you said that's supposed to show up in box 14?
Box
It's
14.
supposed to be box 14, and it's supposed to say STT. Although we did hear from the Department of Revenue that
It's OTT on
it's
theirs.
showing up as OTT. Yes. But originally, according to Shannon, it was supposed to say STT.
Now, box 14 is information purposes.
It
so
is
that-
information purposes.
So that's something that we would have to make sure that we go into the other taxes you paid and manually enter that
Yes.
every single time.
Yes.
Okay.
And given that far fewer people will be deducting, they're having itemized deductions this year, it may be somewhat less of an issue, but at any rate, it's something that's going to have to be dealt with there. That's pretty much what I've got for training tools. There are other things that people are using out there for the state. I know one of the things that I found, unlike, for example, Illinois' returns, the Oregon instructions to the returns are fairly helpful. Not only the Oregon 40, yeah, some head nods over Rebecca. So the Oregon 40 and the Working Family Household Dependent, I love that name. That thing is the instructions for the WFHDC. We have a colloquial name for it I won't go into, but is very helpful. So I think that's sometimes as useful as the the publication 17, the Oregon 17. So those are the kind of the training tools. We've got the module out there. We've got there's good ways to keep up to date with DOR. There will be a publication 17. There's a lot of stuff on Eugene TA, and Portland has all of their. And they put a lot of thought.
And they'll have some videos. There are four
videos.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're the 4 modules. It's basically YouTube videos going through PowerPoint slides. And I think it's by the end of December is when they're supposed to be published live on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
They've done a draft of the 4 modules, and then they're working on getting schedule and time with the good audio equipment and finalizing any last-minute changes to the narration and the slides themselves.
So they're going to release those independent of the software release for TaxAide in Oregon?
Yes.
These are YouTube videos that Cash Oregon has done for Oregon.
Tax law.
And Oregon tax law, the flow between them. There's 4 different slide sets that are addressed. So if you want someone else to talk about the changes to tax law, that could be their pre-work that they have to do is go to this link and watch this video. You know, kind of thing.
Or they missed the Oregon module day. That's a great thing to do. Send them off and have them look at those 4 videos. Because they'll get all pretty much all the same.
For us, because we have a set Oregon class, that is actually some of the pre-work.
Pre-work,
That they're
right,
required to watch all 4 videos, and so there's very little PowerPoint going on in the Oregon class. It's mostly hands-on and.
Right.
And Woody's asked me to put it on the website.
Yeah.
So it'll be both on Cash Oregon.
And I
Oh,
think-
on Eugene. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just, we try to make Eugene TA as much as possible a central resource statewide.
So there is some duplication, but.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's fine. You know, as long as people can get it
Because
all.
the Metro people are so used to going to Cash Oregon, and the rest of us go to Eugene TA.
Well, we still teach them about Eugene TA for all the calculators.
Calculators, right.
But we send them to Cash Oregon because we have our different class modules, and that's where they pick up all of the syllabi and class problems and everything, so.
Right. No, that's very, very useful. So, turning in your handout packets, there's some stuff related to state material. The first thing that I handed out was actually the ASC worksheet, which looks like kind of a spreadsheet. This is a marvelous, marvelous tool, not only for doing returns, but for training on Oregon, because it really centralizes a lot of stuff in one place regarding subtractions, the additions, the credits, and
This is a new improved version.
this is
from
a
last
new
year.
improved version. It may change a little bit because but it is for 2018.
It is.
But what's not 2018 is the report column that says Oregon Hub 17.
Right, yes.
Page numbers.
Because we don't have
It has
those
not
yet.
been updated.
Right.
Right.
And there's
So-
a note at the bottom that says that it is referencing those.
Yes,
Or
yes.
Club 17, 17.
Yes. So this, I think, in terms of training, what's really helpful is this document combined with that flow chart that goes from the federal return into the state return that I referenced earlier. Is there an earlier version of that up on?
Yeah, there is.
Up on.
GTA.
If I can get there without turning off the computer, escape.
We need to put a sticker on that one, so don't touch.
Whatever you do, don't touch
It's
this
in the
button.
toolbox.
There you go.
Is that in the toolbox?
Cancellation.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Primary home.
Scroll down.
Under worksheets.
It's on the worksheets.
Yeah, right there at the top.
Yes.
So there's the worksheet, but I was talking about the flow
Flow
chart.
chart.
From
Oh, the
Fed-
flow
Yeah,
chart.
the flow chart. Where's the flow chart?
Deductions.
Where's the flow chart?
Education.
So there's the HUMAS file, the Oregon and the federal
Right, that's the comparison of the.
comparison. Keep going.
I think
You
you
went
went
too
too far.
fast.
I think it was up in the miscellaneous.
Is it miscellaneous?
There it is, there, stop. There it is, federal return.
There it is.
Right there.
Thank you. I knew it was there. I could hear it breathing.
Yeah, that's the old one.
This is the old one, but it will be updated, and this is, I find this to be extremely, I think in terms of flowchart, maybe it's the accountant training, I don't know, but maybe it's reading music, but this is a really helpful chart combined with the ASC worksheet that kind of really, in two easy places, kind of nails a lot of what goes on to doing an Oregon return. That's the way we think of it anyway. I don't know who put this together, but it's wonderful.
I think it was Wendy.
Was that Wendy?
Yeah.
Who moved to Hawaii?
And I tweaked it for her, so. But Portland has taken it to the next level,
Yep.
which is great.
And Portland is taken on the ASC worksheet as well.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. Here you go. Yay, go do. You want to make it better?
Yes.
Yeah,
Make it better.
Luke did a really good job with
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah, that was outstanding, and as I say, between those two, you've got a lot of it now. Techniques for training, rather than listening to me stand up here and shut off the computer from time to time. Basically, putting together a group of tax documents and asking people to identify Oregon issues based on what's going on in the tax documents. Issue spotting is key to a lot of what we do, because even if you can't resolve the issue, if you've spotted it, somebody can help you do it. This could be an SOM exercise or a pension exercise. I made a pension exercise because the standard Oregon medical deduction is in one of the returns. I don't think the federal pension exclusion is.
Yeah.
It's in one of the required returns, but not one of the training returns.
Not in the training returns, no.
Sample return analysis. It's basically giving people a federal return and saying, what state issues do you see in going through this? And as usual, role playing, basically doing something similar on an interview format. What Oregon questions do you need to ask to make sure that you've got all the information you need for a state return? So what I'd like to do, I passed out a stapled together document that says Forms for Oregon Issue Spotting. And if you just take a few minutes on your tables and take a look at the documents, circle things on the documents that raise Oregon issues for you. And then I've asked to consider a couple of questions after that. What are the issues? What further information would you need to resolve them? What further calculations? And what Oregon resources might be helpful in dealing with this? I should mention that I put these forms together using that forms generator tool that Lois mentioned the other day, and I can always share these on the instructor share website.
Did you find the tool easy to use?
It's gotten better.
Okay.
Yeah, because I used it the previous year.
Well, there's a version 13 out there. You used version 11. So version 13 is out, and it is a little bit easier to use. They've changed the way things are oriented.
Yeah, the forms generator is easy. So yeah, take 5 minutes or so, 5 or 10 minutes, and just kind of identify these things. I think probably 5 minutes is all you need.
Do this way. You can walk around, it's okay.
Well, I will. Now I will.
Wendy used it last year a lot. Yes. He said it was really great. I
Do it all because there's so much you need to do this. Yeah. You had a cookie. Too wild and crazy person.
This is funny, I've been thinking so much on federal, I can't even recall some of the
That's where the ASC is really helpful, because you can look at the ASC and go, what have I got here?
I'm waiting for day 5 next week, so I can listen to John's going to teach to refresh my memory.
600.
It's
600.
reported after
600 in
We
this.
do, I think.
We have to reuse.
Yeah.
And I think
Where's she say?
So she'd say.
It should, it's better.
So we wanted to try to get to this, standard module, get to the video stuff and all.
We have the state training tax.
It's not, yeah, it's not on the ASC, because it's not something that we have to do. You know, theoretically, yeah, it's not something we should have anything because the employer is responsible for.
Yeah, I don't
It's not on the
think
W-2, it's not up to us to do anything with.
A W-2 dam investigation, and all of that stuff. So you would have a W-2. But if you go into
Oh, he's talking about
video
if they
program,
work in Washington and they got.
there, you may not get a W-2.
Have a sheet of paper that
This
requires
is a simple
taxpayers.
thing.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
So we only have one.
But that's all we need. Here, highlight the numbers. These are the numbers you're gonna need for, you can do this on.
it's gonna be a 4 tax.
No, it's a standard TE.
And then they
One
fill it out
eye
and
or
send
something.
it in.
Send it in.
Separate from the
It's a part of the income tax, not part of the income tax.
All right.
They don't standardize.
Come back and.
Before people slip into their post-lunch coma,
I'd say we gotta work out.
But that's how you.
yes, we gotta work out. In lieu of working out, we're just gonna ask you to talk.
Is greater than, so if it's this way, it's as you read.
So maybe we'll just kind of do it by table.
So it's greater than is this way.
That.
This is greater than that.
All right, so
Yeah, but
let's, why don't we do this kind of by tables? Steve, your table.
our table.
Yeah, did you look at the W-2?
Yes.
And what did you come up with on the W-2?
Well, in box 14, we had this code, this STT code, which is our state transit code.
And?
And it is a subtraction. And so then we would go to our fancy chart and find out how to apply that to the Oregon. And I haven't found it yet.
I need my button.
It's not on there.
Oh.
Other taxes paid.
Other taxes paid, so box 14, entry.
It's
So
in
you
the-
can put it in, but it's not.
Well, it's not a trick question, but the reason I put it on there was just to get people used to seeing it, because you will see it on Oregon employer W-2s. Shannon Ball at the DOR says compliance has been good, but it's basically an Oregon income tax. So it would not be a subtraction on the Oregon return. I mean, you would take it out of itemized deductions. You wouldn't show it as an itemized deduction. But it should be a deduction on a federal return. Just like Oregon income tax would be a deduction on a federal return, it can go into making up that $10,000 that you could. Now, it's liable to be a small amount. It's not liable to be a big deal. But if it's there, just kind of be aware that it can be deducted on the federal return. And the other thing is that if it's not there and you have an Oregon resident, we may have to handle it a different way.
Or if you have someone that is a out-of-state, like a Washington resident,
Yes, yes.
California or Idaho, but they work in Oregon and they paid it, they could be entitled to the refund, but it's still separate from this tax return. They have to go to that website.
It's not a refund, there's no refund associated with it.
It's only if they owe it.
Yeah, it's
They
only
may
if
owe it.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that as a kettle. I just wanted to, as an exercise of ways to incite these discussions. That's kind of why I put the document. Did you have a comment, Tom?
Is it only on W-2s?
Yes.
Yes, it's
No 1099 miss,
compensation
no
earned
anywhere
income.
else.
You wouldn't see it on a self-employed person's.
So would this be added into state taxes, or
Yes.
would it be?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right, middle table. We got the W-2G.
Well, the main thing with this, it's over the $600 that you can get tax-free in Oregon. So the question would be, is it multiple tickets? Because you can do up to 600 per ticket. So if it's multiple tickets, then it might be exempt in Oregon. The other thing I wasn't sure of is that I thought on the unemployment W-2G that you had to do, I thought you had to have a phone number on there. And I noticed this one doesn't have a phone number. I just don't know if that's something that, because one or two of the forms in TaxSlayer require a phone number.
I didn't put one in there. That's the main reason it's not in there. Plus the, because I generated this form my own self, and you've seen my computers. You've seen my computer skills. So, but yeah, there typically would be a phone number in there. And you're right, it's a per ticket limitation.
But it looks like.
Help me
there was
out a
only
little
one
bit with
ticket.
this over 600, you can split tickets. Would
Yes.
on the transaction, would you have different numbers there? How would you know that?
No, that's why when you're looking at this, because it says 750, you'd ask the taxpayer, well, did you win that on one ticket? Was that, did they win two different things and they just claimed it on one day in Salem? Because if it's over a certain amount, they have to come to Salem in order to get
I
their
thought they're
winnings.
individual tickets.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. A gentleman had a stack like this over at
Yes,
Pendleton.
we had that.
Yeah, we have that.
But I think if the lottery office issues W-2G, it is not a consolidation of tickets. It is one winning.
Yeah.
Oh, so they would do, so if you
Itemized.
won,
So if you won from the lottery 3 times,
You would get
you would
three.
3.
1099.
oh, well, then that's good information, that's
Yeah,
good. to know.
I think that's the way they do it.
That was my
I
understanding.
don't know
And-
anybody that's won that many times that they'd have to come down to Salem in order to get it.
They send it to you.
No, but that's what I'm saying, is that that's only if the lottery office, which means you had to come to the lottery office and give your social security number. If you just want a series of scratches that you could redeem at the grocery store, they don't actually make you fill out the information on the back.
You're not gonna have a W-2.
Right, that's
Right.
why, that's why I didn't know that if you win 3 times over 600 that they would, because the only time you get this is if you had to come to Salem. And you only have to come to Salem to do it if the winning is over, I think, $500. So I didn't know that they issue multiple because I've never seen someone win more than $500 more than once.
And I think to Celeste's point too, what you would do, if you get a W-2G with Oregon lottery gambling monies, you're gonna ask more questions. Because you're gonna need more information about, is this all of it, what are the other amounts that you may have won? Okay, and now last but not least, this day we take a look at the 1099 int. And what? What does that tip you off? The INT, the 1099 int.
That the U.S. savings bond interest is not taxable in Oregon, so that would be a subtraction. That $200. Oh, you said INT. I looked at the INT. The other one? Okay.
Int is fine. No, that's what I asked about, was the
Okay.
interest was for,
Okay.
so that's right.
All right.
And then where we cover that in the case method with some of those, we have a diagram on, because you do that on the federal side, on the federal return, and it carries to the state return. But there again, it's just kind of, I just did these illustratively to show the raising of the issues. The 1099R Who's left? In the back over there. Tom, Jan. Janice.
It's a federal pension.
Yeah.
I'd be able to go to the calculator and find out what years they worked and put that in and find out how much is not taxable and taxable.
Would you have to do something else first?
First you have to calculate the taxable amount, and then calculate if any other.
There's a glaring blank in box 2A there. So.
We have to know the date of retirement.
Interesting, when I
Yes.
looked at
Go ahead.
when I looked at that, I looked at what I assume was insurance premiums up there, and if this guy is retired and get paid insurance premiums in Oregon, he might get the medical deduction if he's over 60.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other data extrinsic to this that that might go into that. But I just wanted to do a somewhat self-contained pension exercise, and I think for our viewpoint, looking at the fact that there's not one of the case-based returns doesn't have a federal pension exclusion issue in it, so we wanted to raise that. So, I don't know, do we have time to just go into?
I don't know. How much time do you have?
Well, let's open
What's on
up.
the schedule?
Let's use the computer and go in and do the federal pension exercise.
You have 3 minutes.
Well,
That's okay.
you
No,
know,
I can
so
give
with
up some of my
all
time.
due respect, Celeste, I tend to listen to her on my
I will give up some of my assessment time for you. So, because I think this is an important activity. So I think we should open up.
Let's
the
go to
computers
Eugene TA
and go out to
and figure out what we need to do
Oh, we're doing it.
based on that. And then I have the next sheet is a one-pager, which gives you, as Michelle mentioned, you need other information to do the Oregon part of it. So, but since you need to calculate the taxable amount first, if we go in and use the simplified method calculator to figure out how much of that little bugger is actually taxable on the federal return. I didn't want you to think we made you lug your computers all this way for nothing.
no reason. Feel free to use two if you need to. They have enough computers on them to get on the tax. We had to get on the internet. Yeah, so feel free to use two.
So you have, so scroll down. So what are you going to look for? You want to calculate,
John was born in 1950?
I'm retired with the FBI.
Yes.
2915 or?
When was he born? I don't know. 1950.
1950, okay.
Yeah, John was born in 1950, not 2915. That would be a science fiction novel.
19 what?
It's 1950. It's when he was.
Oh, I see.
John was born in 1950. I fat fingered the. Lois. Yeah, Lois Hill. Yeah. Yeah, John was born in 1950, not 2915. I don't know.
I can't remember, is FBI considered
Yes. Yeah. As our firemen and policemen and.
Yes.
I like if you hover over the questions, if you hover over the question
Decided to do updates, huh?
on the calculator, there's a little blue question mark on the far right side of the public safety question.
Oh, okay.
It will actually give you a whole list.
That thing,
No, yeah, but the next one up.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll give you a whole list.
When was John born?
1950, 1950. Charlie, back to you.
Different calculator?
Okay.
Yeah, it's different than that. This is like-
There's a single sheet that's in there. There you go. This guy right
So then you
there.
gotta figure out when did he start getting.
And the birth date is 1950.
$1,950.
He received
Not
his
29.
his annuity.
1950, yeah.
2,000.
So he's doing the simplified method. We open it up to the.
Check your.
Celeste, that calculator has a list of everybody who's
Oh, okay.
1950.
next to that. Check if it's a public safety officer.
I assumed it was language.
That question mark drops down a whole list.
Okay.
Calculator or exclusion calculator. I thought that was the same.
Oh, the federal pension subtraction calculator's not updated yet.
So
For what?
For the Oregon federal subtraction.
Oh, yeah, the
We gotta
Oregon
set the
federal.
taxpayer and then set
Yeah.
this.
Right.
Yeah, but we're in the simplified method section.
I love it. I love it.
Now, wait a minute. We
This is 1950. 1950, not 1950.
It's not a 1950.
Annuity pension.
I know, Charlie said, Charlie kept the typing wrong. It's okay, it happens.
Every time I read
Got his or hers.
All right, so, he didn't choose,
Yeah, because next year you'll have to do the calculation, you can pull out that sheet. And
Apparently people are being cheap about printing.
Yeah.
some people are. We print.
Well, I appreciate it. And then I just put out.
total annuity
Yes.
contribution.
Go ahead, slap. Okay, so what did I get from this?
Annual cost of insurance.
So all this, I figure out the cash flow now.
And he got this,
I love this little thing.
June, so that's 6 months, right?
And then you can double check
Got
the
it.
gross.
July, or
No,
he
this
started.
is the box one is the gross one.
This really is all
Five
what
million.
you're familiar with.
But yeah,
Seven.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Oh, you're in the Oregon calculator, sorry, yeah, sorry. Which calculator you were in, and I don't think that's updated, I think that's still 2017, yeah.
Okay.
It just caught my attention.
One person is about.
That's all you.
Oh, gross there.
It was in the packet. It was in the it was behind the. There you go.
So if you go down.
Just in case it would work.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because I. Oh, 19.
Yeah. Didn't you like that 2950?
Oh, I know. There's always something.
So the gross district, so the tax.
Additional classes.
Yeah.
I missed.
That figure.
I didn't use my highlighter.
There you go. That should get you closer.
Oh, you're gonna have to go to class. But the start date, the
Yeah.
birth date.
I can't get the birthday date. You can birthday?
You can hardly see it.
Okay, once you get the box, scroll it down, scroll it down.
You should have been able to tell by the length.
I
Through the
didn't.
box, just go through.
Oh, he's got a whole page.
Oh, you're gonna have a whole page too, because it's an amortization
Oh, so
schedule.
then you can
So
stick
it
that in
goes
the
on
tax
to you.
return?
Exactly.
Yeah, first of all, everybody came up with that
Exactly.
first.
Oh my God.
That changed over to annuities.
Yeah, but I looked at that, it used to be,
Yeah.
I forgot,
It
it
was
used to be a
farther
whole
on.
bunch of stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And
I was trying to go down, I wasn't even looking at it.
So you got that, that's nice, so you can plug that into the federal, that's cool. But now what do you do?
All right.
You got
How we doing?
that and worry about-
So the Oregon calculator is.
17.
2017, yeah.
I think I have an email waiting for me.
I did it in the 18, but
Yeah.
I did it in the 18, and basically you end up with figuring out a taxable amount.
This calculator was done in the future as well.
Well, this calculator
Take a look
is,
at the version.
this calculator's been updated, so it
Notice
is.
it says the version is 11/27,
You can see up there.
2019.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty
We're
good.
Well ahead of the game.
Bit of a typo.
Yeah, and if you make his annuity contributions, I made mine, instead of 110,000, it was 1,100,000 and something thousand. It did some really weird stuff with the subtraction. It gave me a minus $8,000 subtraction for his insurance, and then it told me that if I couldn't, that I had to put the other $11,000 on his Schedule A. I went, what? and then it finally dawned on me that I must have an input error somewhere, and I looked at my numbers and went, oh, well, there we go, I have an extra one.
So anyway, we've
Yeah,
got,
and it went right.
Absolutely, it goes in the folder we don't have.
so depending on what tax year you did, if you did 18, you got one number. If you did 17, you got another number. So the next step is to use the Oregon. Has everybody gone ahead and done the Oregon? So, I mean, this is basically an exercise that I think is useful in class to go through, because we see it a lot, and it kills two birds with one stone. Because you have to do the federal taxable amount calculation first, and then you can go through and do the Oregon exclusion, and it kind of does it all in one thing. I'm going to add these slides onto the Oregon Standard module, so they'll be there. I think that makes some sense, John. And then you can, they'll all be kind of in one place.
So can we go back up to the first one, the one?
Sure.
Exclusion.
Or is our date of birth?
Oops, this one here?
No, the one before that.
723.
The one that you can't read?
Oh,
That one.
because you.
Oh, you used 2017.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was consistent. I used 2017, so the number's a little different.
No,
But
just so we know that.
just so you know, I mean, it's important to know what taxable year. Obviously, you're doing the
Well, but
exercise
it's
for.
good to be consistent, but as we present
That's why
it.
we didn't.
As you present it,
Yes,
yeah.
you should have.
And what I probably will do is update this slide for 2018,
Okay.
and then I'll just put a note on the other one, because I've got this in the Oregon stuff. In the Oregon stuff, on the slides where I don't have updates, I've tried to put like bubbles that say,
That's your.
watch for the 2018
Here's your
stuff.
box one.
And typically it'll appear first on UGTA.
Okay, started in.
All right, so that's all I have for Oregon. In case people have other questions on training for Oregon, try to give you
Did
some
everybody get there?
tips and techniques and.
15.
This thing.
15-1.
1-5.
No.
And then you,
His birthday.
the worksheet is down to share.
It's her birthday. So you're good.
So why can't I see
I think it's under share.
Well,
I'll ask Lois. Lois, is the ASC on Eugene? Yes.
This version.
The 2018? I don't think it is.
It's not a.
Because it wasn't, I don't remember.
Yeah.
No, because it says Orange County.
Yeah.
No, that, yeah.
I know, I did a screenshot of this to put on the slide.
Yeah. Okay, good. And
Yes.
this is-
Yeah, it's not there yet.
Okay.
It's on the share, I can grab it.
Well, a lot of the stuff on the UGTA isn't gonna get updated till the end of next weekend, so, 10 days from now.
But we do want to.
If you do want a current copy of that, you can go to the Cash Oregon site, it is on there.
Okay. Because I want to print them off for handout.
So those are the things that I thought would be helpful for Oregon training. A lot of the stuff's a work in progress, so watch the UGTA's website for a lot of this stuff, or Cash Oregon.
So John,
Yeah.
so if you, when you go to Cash Oregon, if you want this version of it before it gets uploaded, it's in the specific classes and it's why it's on Oregon training. Yeah, both classes, they're basically the same, so they'll both have the version pay on
Total amount to be excluded,
We're still working on
All right. It's fun to work. I like this stuff. God help me.
Spouse's birthday is July
I
23rd.
spent 2 weeks tracking down You could not
Now we have a
imagine
gross distribution, now you should be looking at that 45, whatever it is.
had a CPA only do this through, and I did, I had a boy in Jim who do it. And they agree with it. You know what saved me?
Yeah.
Jim had a standalone tax-wise software that somehow he figured out, and it was correct. But the ours wasn't. And the gentleman was smart enough, Mike had done the same thing, he said, we understand what you're telling us. No, we understand what you're saying. I didn't see what you're saying.
But until it's, we're crossing our fingers, instead of pulling it out, you can't put it in because it's not in the software, but, you know.
So you're next, assessments.
I almost hit your off button. I did.
I don't feel so
almost
bad.
did.
Yeah, the escape key is too close to the off button.
It is.
Well, I had that same problem. Mine is a Dell, and when I close down the lid, it goes into hibernation.
Oh, God.
And I pop it up and I hit the on button. But I did this thing instead of waiting for it to go.
Oh, that must be on this model, why they moved it over.
Alrighty. Let's, I want to do quick talks about assessments and evaluations. So you can see that's a fun exercise, get people into the calculators, but I had given him, what, 10 minutes, and it took us almost 30 for that exercise. So it takes a while to get in and get people ready to type, because, you know, we all fat-fingered every one of those, plus we had issues with the dates, and it's all, you know, it all just takes a little while, right? So, I want to be able to identify the difference between assessment and evaluation. Look at some assessment methods, why we do evaluations, and effective assessments, right? I should have put animation on this. I thought I had. So, assessments. Assessments are opportunities for the learner to figure out where they got to, right? Oh, wait, the instructor to figure out where the learner got to. That's what I wanted to say. Because they're focused on what the learner is doing. Are we getting to our objectives, right? That's all about what the assessments are. So that's why we do the little quizzes. Can we do the calculators? Can we answer the questions? Can we describe all those neat active words off of Bloom's taxonomy, right? There really is a one group. Can we extrapolate from one set of facts to another? So we do an example, talk through an example, and then we give them a different example. Can they take those facts, one set of facts, and apply them to another set of facts? Evaluations for instructors to see how effective they have been. We're going to do two different things with them, right? The learners, how do we make success with the learners? Evaluations, how do the instructors be successful? So we've mirrored for you, we've modeled for you a lot of these assessment techniques. There was a reason for that, right? So you can see what they look like. See how they feel as a learner. Was that effective for me? If it wasn't effective for you, it may not be effective for all of your students. You may need to look at multiple types of assessments throughout your modules. Questions to the whole group, small group exercises, or small exercises, little small exercises. Homework quizzes, small group tasks that give feedback to the whole. We've done a lot of that discussion, and then let's hear from everybody. Anything else you can think of that we might use for assessments?
Just walking around and listening.
So listening to the discussions,
Right.
interjecting.
Yeah.
Jeopardy game.
Jeopardy games. Games in general can be really useful, right? Anything else on the assessments? I kind of blitzed through that one where I went behind.
Sorry.
I'm sorry?
I said sorry.
That's okay. No. I gave you the time. So on your evaluations, right, you want to look at what your objectives were. So asking the students to tell you whether or not they think the objectives were met. What do they think you should be doing differently or may do differently? to help you improve the next time you do that class or another class. Wow, Ruth, you talk too fast. Okay, I do, I talk too fast. So I have to consciously think about it. You don't allow time for us to respond to questions, that's why. I count to 10, consciously, so that I know, because I know it's one of my horrible weaknesses. I jump in on other instructors. It's a weakness. I have to slap myself. I'm a big fan of open-ended questions, rather than, check the box, give me, linear scales, those kind of things. I do ask some of those questions because they're easy to do and people like them. But I like the open-ended questions because I get a lot more valuable feedback. I get what people are thinking and feeling. Yeah.
Well, plus it's also good to evaluate the material, not necessarily the instructor.
Absolutely, you want to be able to do both, but as an instructor, I want to know whether I'm doing something that's impeding someone's learning, so that I can modify, perhaps, if it's possible.
But if you're not the one that wrote the program, and if you're teaching somebody else's lesson plan, does the lesson plan need to be modified to meet the objectives? So
absolutely. So you want to ask both questions, right? You want to talk about content. You also do want some feedback on your presentation styles, your methods by which you presented the material. And try, please, this is really hard, right? Not to take them personally. Not to take them personally. You are never going to please everyone in the world. Not going to happen. So you kind of go, okay, well, that person was really unhappy. I'm sorry they were really unhappy. If there's something constructive that I can take from that, I can go, okay, well, maybe that's a valid point. If I see 5 of those, I go, wow, I have a problem. Because obviously much more than one person had ever. If I get a one-off, I'm going to go, wow, I'm really sorry I didn't connect with that person. Maybe I can do something different. But I'm not going to go, oh, I need to change my whole approach because one person wasn't happy. I've been teaching a long time. So a little bit about this. We talked about the things that we've used in this training, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I do want you to think about what of our assessments do you think were effective? Was anything ineffective? Was there something better we could have used? What do we think? Feel free. I'm giving you permission.
I liked Charlie's Oregon activities. I liked having the forms and looking for the information, and the next exercise. I really like that. I mean, it was simple, self-contained, but very informative. I thought it was effective. So that was good.
Awesome. Yay, Charlie. Charlie can go back home happy. He worked hard on this exercise.
And it takes knowing how much energy and effort it takes to put together something that appears simple. There's a lot of time and effort put into it.
There
So
is.
you can't underestimate that.
You could see that he was comfortable with it, and it made us comfortable.
Good. Good. Yeah.
Maybe I am an actor after all.
There you go.
Don't have that trauma.
Really. Group discussions, table discussions, were those effective, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Larger group discussions, open questions, were those effective? Sometimes, right? Sometimes not so effective. So it's picking and choosing when you use one over the other. The little self-contained exercises, the write down the index cards. I'm a big fan of index cards, getting people to write their thoughts. And if you're asking them to come back to the whole group, having written it down is much easier for people, by the way, because they feel like I've already had a chance to think about it. I can look at my card and speak. So and that's helpful, especially for introductions, because they don't have to try and think on their feet. Not everyone can do that. Anything that we could have done better on our assessments? we just felt like, wow, that just didn't work. I won't do that. Okay, I guess we did all right. All right, so there will be an evaluation. Speaking of evaluation, do I have, what else have we got here? That's me. I think we're at a break before we do the ethics alternatives. So there will be another evaluation that we'll get to after Charlie does his thing. Charlie's on the hot seat today, isn't he? So it's a break. Let's take about our full 15 minutes. So 2:25 we'll come back. Okay? 2:25.